I understand bias. We all have it. That's fine. You can be biased but still be fair. There are some reporters I have dealt with who are very left-wing, but they are so fair, I actually think it's a real pleasure to be interviewed by them, because at worst, I'll get a good debate from them, but there's an intellectual honesty and no gotcha journalism. It's been a while, but Charlie Smith at Vancouver's Georgia Strait is an example of that. And even a few years back, my dealings with Edward Keenan of the Toronto Star. Very biased, but very fair, to me at least. I can live with that. I'm sort of used to being a conservative in a leftist world, the media being even more think-alike than most. But what about when a media company is so biased, it literally refuses to even acknowledge reality? It just will not even run a story at all, even to criticize it, because to acknowledge a story is to concede a partisan point. We saw that recently in the United States when the shocking revelations about Hunter Biden, Joe Biden's son, came to light. He's under all sorts of investigations for his corrupt dealings with China and Russia and Ukraine. He's under FBI investigation for tax evasion. And he even had his entire computer hard drive made public. Emails, photos, videos, including videos and photos purporting to show him smoking crack cocaine with strippers and prostitutes. I know it sounds crazy, but it really was his hard drive, and he really had those photos and videos on it, and they were published. The New York Post, one of America's largest and oldest newspapers, published the news about Hunter Biden and his laptop, but then Twitter literally banned them from tweeting about it and banned anyone who retweeted the New York Post for days and days. Total ban, total election interference. That's insane censorship. But Twitter, they don't pretend to be journalists, right? I don't know what they are. They're not really a platform. I think they're censors more than anything. They don't actually generate content, but they censor things. But look at this from something called National Public Radio, NPR. We don't want to waste our time on stories that are not really stories, and we don't want to waste the listeners' and readers' time on stories that are just pure distractions. That is what they had to say about the Hunter Biden laptop. They were explaining why they weren't even covering the stories to criticize them. With that, they just said Hunter Biden wasn't news. That was in October, when it mattered. Now it's November and then December, where we are now, halfway through December. And now, after the election, we know that it was a huge story, that there are investigations, and they don't just touch on Joe Biden's son, but on Joe Biden's brother. And obviously the only reason his ne'er-do-well brother and his ne'er-do-well son are receiving lavish payments from foreigners is not because they have any skills, but of course because they are related to Joe Biden himself. They're selling their family relationship to him. So of course Joe Biden is newsworthy, and these scandals obviously are about Joe Biden, at least at one degree of separation, but National Public Radio said it was too boring. It's a distraction from, more important things. Do you see what I mean? You can cover the Hunter Biden story with bias. You're on Biden's side, but you still cover it. But if you are so extreme that you don't even cover it, well, you're not a journalist anymore, are you? You're a what? I don't know, propagandist, a liar, a partisan, a censor, a political campaigner, I don't know, but you're not a reporter. And let me now bring you to the CBC. They're reporters, sort of. They're government reporters. You have to have that adjective, that qualifier, that modifier. They're government reporters, which is a very different thing. In the story of the year in Canada, that we broke here at Rebel News about the China files, the CBC are not reporters. They're not even government reporters. They haven't reported on them at all. They haven't shown them. They haven't reported them with bias. They just pretend the documents don't exist. We broke that news story 7 days ago, last Wednesday at 2:15 p.m. to be precise. We put all the documents up on our website in full for the world to look at. We gave them to everyone. Later that day, the Globe and Mail reported on them, and then later the National Post, and then the next day the Toronto Sun reported on them. And the Sun moved the story forward, proving that Canada, in fact, did train Chinese soldiers at CFB Petawawa in 2018. And within days, huge American and foreign media covered it too. I went on Fox News' largest show, Tucker Carlson. That was pretty fun, but nothing Nothing from the CBC on Wednesday, on Thursday, on Friday. This was the biggest story of the year until the weekend when literally there was a one-sentence vague mention of it on the CBC website, not even a TV or radio story, a mention in passing, and not showing the documents. One sentence. Nothing on TV or radio news. The biggest scoop of the year. Don't take it from me. It just absolutely was the biggest story of the year. It involved China, it involved the Canadian Armed Forces, it involved Trudeau and internal battles and training Chinese troops at Canadian bases and our allies objecting to that, and secret documents that were released by accident, and the two kidnapped Canadians, Michael Spavor and Michael Kovrig. There was literally nothing about this story that was not newsworthy. The CBC didn't try to spin it. They just hid it. They just put a cone of silence over it. Until yesterday, 6 days after our scoop, the CBC sat down with one of the CBC's masters, a Trudeau cabinet minister named Francois Philippe, the foreign minister who thought it was appropriate to have a $1 million mortgage from the Bank of China, a state bank in the communist China, even after he was elected as an MP, even after he was appointed to cabinet, even after he was appointed to foreign minister. He's talking about China in the cabinet room while owing the Chinese Communist Party and their bank more than $1 million. You can't make that up. So watch this clip. Watch this clip. Take a look.
The reason I asked for a framework is, and you're well aware of this, the opposition charges that your policy towards China is incoherent. There was recently an article in the Globe and Mail which seemed to underscore that argument, right? It showed that the military had a certain posture when it came to joint exercises with the Chinese military in this country, and that there was a lot of pushback from your department about that. They didn't want disengagement when it came to China. And this was a few months after Michael Kovrig and Michael Spavor were detained. They didn't want to reduce the bilateral interactions or relationships in any capacity. How are Canadians supposed to square that one arm of the Canadian government says we shouldn't be increasing our engagement or maintaining our engagement with China, while your arm, another arm, says don't do anything to anger China? Are you more worried about China's reactions than you are about Canadians? How do you?
But let's put that in context of time. Now we're referring things which date back at best 2 years ago, or 3 years ago.
Yeah, to the beginning of 2019.
And the point is that what I kept saying at the beginning, and I think people who are watching understand, China of 2020, not China of 2018, not China of 2016. And even some of colleagues in Europe would say that the framework they've put at the beginning of this year is not anymore accurate because things are evolving so quickly when it comes to China. So my point to that, what you were referring to was discussion between officials which date back years. Clearly, the posture of Canada has changed since then.
But Michael Kovrig and Michael Spavor had already been detained.
And that was at the time. And like I said, our view and our posture has been changing because now you're talking
So you wouldn't have pushed back today like there was pushback then? Not you, I know it was somebody else.
No, but I would say we would never
thing.
consider that today to do what was done. But my point is that we always have to put that in time because you could refer back that the previous government has signed also a joint exercise agreement or some framework. You would never do that today. I think people understand that.
Now, it doesn't bother me that Vasily Kapelos of the CBC mentions the Globe and Mail instead of us, because it's true, the Globe and Mail did do this story. It's bizarre to me how she describes the documents. She never mentions secret documents, never shows the documents, just mentions the Globe and Mail. So if you didn't read the Globe and Mail, you probably don't even know what she's talking about, really. She lets her boss, that Liberal cabinet minister, get away with pretending this was done years ago. No, it wasn't. It was 2019. It was 2008. It was last year. It was just last year that this pro-China Trudeau government was screaming at the army for daring to want to cancel a cold weather warfare exercise. It wasn't ancient history. It was 2019. It was last year. After China took our 2 hostages, that's what made it extra outrageous. This little weasel was trying to say, oh, China is very different now. No, it's not. And the CBC's obedient employee did not push back. But look at the tweet that included that video. Look at this. I just want to show you what they wrote, not the video. They wrote, Francois Philippe Champagne says Canada would never today consider joint military exercises like the exercises that were reportedly planned and subsequently canceled in 2019 between the Canadian Armed Forces and China's People's Liberation Army. Story first reported by Globe and Mail. So in the video clip, Vachikaplos says the story was in the Globe and Mail, which is true. It obscures the full truth, but the story was reported in the Globe. She didn't describe the story or show the documents, but it was in the Globe. That's fine. I don't really care. But look at the written version. Story first reported by the Globe and Mail. But that's just not true, is it? Who wrote that? And why would they write that? Look at all the replies to that tweet. Scroll down. Keep scrolling. Keep scrolling. Everyone calling her out as a liar again and again and again. Keep scrolling. Keep going down slowly. The CBC just being butchered by the millions of people who know it came from us. Even other media, including in the United States, mentioned it too. This is a lie. Story was broke by Rebel Media and Ezra Levant. Huge, huge. I mean, 5 million people, or however many, watched Tucker Carlson on Fox, saw where the documents came from. I really don't think anyone in Canada actually watches CBC Politics. If you look at the CBC's latest viewership statistics, they're plunging. It's really as close to zero as it gets. I think there's just like 3% of Canadians even watch it. It's, I don't know. Maybe there's a relationship there. Maybe the fact that so few people watch the CBC is related to the fact that so few people trust the CBC. We're biased here at Rebel News. We're conservative, just heads up in case you didn't know. But you've never seen us kill a story to support a Tory. In fact, the Conservative Party, the fact that we can't be controlled by them, I think they hate that about us as much as Trudeau hates that about us. Same reason. Ask that loser Andrew Scheer who stopped talking to us after we criticized him. We're independent, which is why I think people trust us, even when they disagree with us, even when they're liberal. They know we have an opinion, but we are fair. And we break stories, and we talk about the news even when we don't like the news. Not the CBC. They simply don't talk about stories, huge stories, stories of the year, when those stories embarrass their liberal boss, Justin Trudeau, and his crooked cronies. And when they do finally mention it in a tweet 7 days later, they lie like a rug. The CBC hates you. I think the CBC hates a lot of Canadians. But judging by their ratings, I think the feeling's mutual. That's an excerpt from my daily show, The Ezra Levant Show. Every day I do a monologue on the news of the day, then I interview an interesting guest, and then I read my hate mail. You gotta subscribe. Go to rebelnews.com.